Warmest welcome to you all. It's my great pleasure to welcome all of you to campus for the Gala premiere of 1916, The Irish Rebellion. We at Notre Dame believe in the power of stories that shape our past, shape our present, and inspire our future. You know, Notre Dame is in many ways a vast collection of stories by which we understand ourselves and chart the course for our future. This is perhaps one important way in which we reflect our Irish heritage. You know, our first responsibility as an educational institution is to our students. But it doesn't stop there. Through research, scholarship, and creative expression, we seek to illuminate the wider world. In this effort, our faculty are proud to join forces with others to produce works that make a difference, like tonight's documentary. This landmark film series reframes the events of the famous Easter Uprising of 1916. The 1916 uprising marked the beginning of the end for the era of colonial empire. And it was led by what has often been described by a band of poets who inspired generations of patriots through their words and their actions. In a few moments, I will be honored to welcome to the stage Ireland's ambassador to the United States, the first woman to hold this post, with her own Professor Christopher Fox, the director of the Keough-Naughton Institute of Irish Studies. You know, over the years, Notre Dame has been graced to receive many of Ireland's leaders, academics, church leaders, prime ministers, presidents. Indeed, one such future leader and president was Taoiseach Eamon de Valera, who visited the University of Notre Dame in 1919, invited by my predecessor, Father James Burns. He was the lone survivor of the 1916 uprising, and he returned to the United States to promote the cause of freedom. He described his reception at Notre Dame as the best he received in America. And in fact, the student newspaper who was reporting on the event described the audience's applause as, quote, spontaneous, continuous, and uproarious. I'm probably putting a lot of pressure on our distinguished guest, the Madam Ambassador, but I assure her of a warm Notre Dame reception. Notre Dame and Ireland have always shared a special connection, one marked by our determination against all odds. Our proud moniker, the Fighting Irish, finds its origin in the well-known and indomitable spirit of the Irish people. One of the key leaders of the 1916 uprising, Pádraig Pearse, the first president of the provincial Irish government, said in his final words at his trial, quote, "Believe that we too love freedom and desire it. To us, it is more desirable than anything in the world. If you strike us down, we shall rise again and renew the fight. You cannot conquer the Irish people. You cannot extinguish the Irish passion for freedom." This is the spirit that we honor and celebrate tonight. And so, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Republic of Ireland's ambassador to the United States, Her Excellency Anne Anderson and Professor Chris Fox.
Good evening, everybody. Well, thank you, Father Jenkins, not just for such a warm welcome to me, but such wonderful words that capture so much of the spirit of this centenary year. I am genuinely delighted to be here this evening. Tá mé anna áthasach a bheith anseo anocht. It's such a fitting event that should form a centerpiece of our centenary celebrations. Fitting in every way. We just heard from Father Jenkins, of course, about the storied connections between Ireland and Notre Dame that go back so far. Of course, we all know about your wonderful football team and Go Irish and all of that, but it is so much more than that. And how inspiring to hear the account of the visit here of Eamon de Valera. So many connections over so much time. And of course, a particular jewel is the Keogh Nocton Institute. We are so happy to have with us this evening. I think Don, we can say, is here in spirit. Mickey and Shayla are here. And of course, my good friends, the Nocton family, Martin and Carmel, are with us. It's really just inspiring to think of the team that came together to create this wonderful, wonderful film. We will hear shortly from Brianna, who was the inspiration behind it all. The wonderful, indefatigable Chris is going to speak after me. We have people here from Coco Productions, who were obviously so much part of it, and what I might describe as our national treasure, Liam Neeson, is going to speak with you shortly. Liam, of course, is the narrator of this film. And I should also pay tribute, of course, to the involvement of the Irish government and RTE, and also, and very specially, to so many generous contributors whose donations and work and generosity made the funding of this film possible. I know that we're all quite impatient, and I am certainly impatient to see this film, having heard so much about it. But I just want to make a few brief points. I think the first of these is to say how important it is that America and Irish America would be front and centre in the centenary commemorations. Because, of course, as we all know, the history of our two countries is entirely intertwined, as indeed is the contemporary reality. Looking back at the history, it's there from the beginning. There is testament to it in the very founding documents. Your own Declaration of Independence in 1776 had 3 signatories who were Irish-born. And our Proclamation of Independence, our Proclamation of 1916 from the steps of the GPO, had 7 signatories. And 5 of those 7 signatories had spent time in the United States that profoundly shaped their thinking and their actions. And I know we're going to see in the film this evening a great deal more evidence of how the American engagement and presence and encouragement made 1916 possible and made it happen. And of course, it's not just 1916, but in the 100 years that have intervened, America and Ireland have stood together. America has been our friend, our partner through thick and thin. So it is just so appropriate and fitting and important that this centerpiece of the centenary celebrations would be the result of a collaboration between the genius that we have here and some of the talent back in Ireland. So enormously important, of course, both in Ireland and the United States. And this film, it's going to be shown very widely in the United States. Already some showings of segments on RTE that have been greeted with enormous enthusiasm in Ireland. There will be a major get-together on the eve of St. Patrick's Day, the 16th of March, when the President, Michael D. Higgins, is there with about 1,200 other people in a special Irish premiere. We get there first, but they will come in a couple of weeks in Ireland, a special premiere of the film. But the point I want to make, and that, of course, you'll hear later this evening, is that it's so much more than just Ireland and America, because the resonance of 1916 was felt worldwide. For many years of my career, I was ambassador at the United Nations, and I cannot tell you how many ambassadors from countries in Africa and Asia and Latin America knew the history of 1916 at least as well as I knew it myself, because their countries too had drawn inspiration from it. So this film is going to be seen very widely. We know there's interest from 5 continents. We know that Brian and Chris are going to be going all over the world, talking about it, showing it. So this film has scope and has significance in a way that is commensurate with the scope and the significance and the weight of what happened in 1916. This film matters. The final point that I want to make is that it's fitting in another way too, because it resonates exactly with the way we want to celebrate this centenary. We were absolutely clear that we didn't want the centenary to be in any way an arid or sterile or self-satisfied or self-congratulatory marking of simply a point in history. It is so much more than that. It's not just about the past, it's about the present, and it's about the future. And the themes that we chose for this centenary year were themes: remember, reconcile, reimagine. So as well as marking and celebrating the legacy of 1916, we wanted to look back at the 100-year journey and reflect on the point at which we have arrived and set our compass for the decades that lie ahead. And this film, it's a film that, of course, it educates and it illuminates and it enlightens, all of that. But most importantly, it's a film that interrogates and challenges. And that is exactly what we need and what we want in this centenary year. So I say to Notre Dame and to everybody involved in this wonderful film, you have done us a great service. And on behalf of the people of Ireland, thank you. Gurna Míle Maith.
Thank you, Ambassador Anderson. 5 years ago, the University of Notre Dame's Keogh Naughton Institute for Irish Studies, led by its director and by Professor Brina Nickjurmida, made a decision to explore the 1916 Easter uprising in all its historic dimensions. We were struck how American filmmaker Ken Burns had managed to take exhaustive and cutting-edge research on the U.S. Civil War and make it accessible to millions of viewers worldwide. We wondered if we could do something similar for the 1916 Dublin Rebellion. This led to years of research in libraries and film archives worldwide, to wide consultations with historians and experts in multiple countries, to the assembly of a first-rate creative and production team in Ireland and the United States, to filming in 7 countries, and finally to a landmark 3-part documentary for worldwide public television narrated by Liam Neeson. And this evening would not have happened at all without the people sitting in this room. I'd like to thank you all. Could we get a round of applause for everybody who contributed? It has already appeared in Ireland to absolutely wonderful reviews. It is also about to appear in the United States on over 200 PBS stations with, I'm told, yesterday, 1,144 airings in its very first week later this month. And it will also air in 60 countries. Now, the Eastern 1916 uprising was a brief event in a small country with long-term consequences for the world in which we live. It's an Irish story, it's an English story, it's an American story, it's a World War I story. Most profoundly, it's a deeply human story. Now, I take this opportunity to thank everyone involved with the project who shared our dream, and the many people here this very special evening who helped us realize that dream. I especially thank our donors present, the marvelous creative team on both sides of the Atlantic, our faculty contributors, our wonderful narrator, Liam Neeson, who was with us on this project from the very beginning, and our families and friends who lived with us and with it over the last 5 years. Some of them might be happy to talk about something else. Now, I especially thank my dear, dear friend and Keogh Naughton Institute faculty fellow colleague, Brina Nickjurmida, the Thomas J. and Kathleen M. O'Donnell Professor of Irish Studies and concurrent professor of film, television, and theater, who oversaw every aspect of the 1916 project and wrote the script. And it's my great pleasure to introduce Professor Brina Nickjurmida.
Gurv mila magat Chris, gurv mila mahagufsha mahansan, nakuntuk anihe. This is just an incredible evening, I have to say, not only for me, but for everyone associated with this incredible project. And this is a wonderful university. Where else but Notre Dame could we do this? Could we even think of doing this? And it's building, it isn't just, this didn't happen in a vacuum. It's building on, as Ambassador Anderson said, it's building on a long historic connection between Ireland, between indeed 1916, again as Father Jenkins said, Eamon de Valera, the leader who wasn't executed, came to Notre Dame and had 1,500 students here in 1919. So we're building on that incredible heart connection between the University of Notre Dame, particularly in the last 25 years, the Keownachtan Institute for Irish Studies here, and Ireland. And increasingly, not just the Irish at home, but the Irish diaspora throughout the world. And this is bringing it all back home tonight. We brought our history back to Ireland through this documentary, through this landmark series, and tonight it is just so wonderful to bring it all back home to the home of the fighting Irish. And I just thank the university from my heart. Again, to reiterate Chris's thanks to our wonderful, wonderful donors, without whom we could do nothing. To everyone who assisted us from the word go. It's 5 long years, you know. There are times when we thought this would never, ever happen. But people kept faith. And I've been tasked, especially this evening, to thank our creative team. We've been blessed by an amazing, amazing group of people on both sides of the Atlantic who worked on this. And I would also like to thank, just on a personal note, my own family members who are here this evening, particularly Gay, all of my colleagues in Irish language and literature and in Irish studies generally. But I would like to draw particular attention to our production company, Coco Television. They went far beyond contractual obligations. They put heart, passion, and everything they had into this. And I think you'll see it on the screen. We have with us this evening executive producer Linda Cullen, executive producer Stuart Switzer, and financial director Mary Flanagan, who ensure that every penny in our budget can be seen on the screen. Thanks, guys. I would also like to thank... I would also like to thank, I'm going back a little bit here, to thank the absolutely incredible, fantastic Professor Fox. Because without him, none of us would have been here this evening. Chris kept the faith. And times when I felt like saying, oh no, Chris, we can't. Chris kept the faith. I would also can't let this evening pass without mentioning Beth Bland, Mary Hendrickson, and Margaret Lloyd, who was there from the beginning. They were amazing. I'm also delighted that we have here this evening Ruan McGann, a brilliant director. Ruan brought his amazing visual sensitivity and sensibility to this, but he did more than that. You'd expect that. That's what we pay directors for, right? To be visual. Ruan brought to this an incredible, deep, emotional, and intellectual honesty. You know, his contribution has just been immense. I would also like to thank, and I think we were really actually very clever to do this, we approached Patrick Cassidy, one of, I suppose, Ireland's leading living composer, who's based in LA, who has written some amazing film scores. But I think, being honest, and maybe I'm just being biased, but I think he surpassed himself with this one. It is just haunting, it's compelling. I'd also like to acknowledge Frank Cassidy and for all Frank's musical direction here. A bit like The Rising itself, we were, as I say, both sides of the Atlantic. And we again this evening have John Siskel and Greg Jacobs, who, as Siskel and Jacobs, Emmy Award-winning producers in Chicago, they were our consulting producers from the American side. And again, we wanted to tell the story, not just to an Irish audience, or an Irish and British audience, or a European audience, or just an American audience. We want to tell this to all audiences, and they really helped us make that accessible and make it clear in our storytelling. I should thank them from my heart. I would also like to thank WTTW, the PBS affiliate station, our presenting station in Chicago. And we have Dan Soules and Marie Considine here. And they are instrumental in having the documentary series, the 3-by-1 hour series, shown in over 60% of households in the United States. That's just amazing. It's kind of mind-boggling. And again, thank you so much. From the word go, they've been there from the beginning. And I'd now like to ask all of those people whose names I mentioned, I hope I haven't forgotten anybody, could you please stand so we can acknowledge you properly? Thanks, guys. There's just one person I haven't mentioned yet. The voice. What can you say about Liam Neeson? He's amazing. And it was it was just a boon. I mean, when we were thinking of this, Chris and I, and when I was doing the very early drafts of the scripts, his voice was there. That voice was there from the beginning. And again, through the good graces, I think, of the late Don Keogh, Chris managed to get in touch with Liam's agent, and Liam agreed. He has been incredible. His generosity of spirit has been just immense. His voice is, well, you'll hear it yourselves. I mean, I don't have to say anything about that. People have said at home that you could listen to Liam Neeson read the phone book and be entertained. I hope this is a little bit more interesting than the phone book, but he has been absolutely superb through all of this. Again, way beyond the call of duty. And it is my huge, immense, great pleasure and great privilege to ask to the stage now the big fella himself, Mr. Liam Neeson.
Ladies and gentlemen, honoured guests, Ambassador Anne Anderson, Father Jenkins, I'm very honoured, very pleased to be with you here tonight. You know, it's funny, on my way here, I was thinking of when I was in Dublin at the age of 12 to participate in the All-Ireland Juvenile Amateur Boxing Championships. It was 1966, and it was the 50th anniversary of the Easter Rising. I remember seeing large photographic images of strange, skinny-looking men with moustaches and sticky-out ears, just normal Joe Schmoes, all over the city, and not having a clue who they were. Of course, I am referring to the leaders of the Rising. But the experience of being there for that week at Easter, with all the city's flags and pageantry, it lodged in my soul a national pride and a pride of Irish identity. And I'm also a proud Ballymena Ulsterman. I still carry that pride, even though I lost in the boxing finals that year. Now, I was robbed, but that's another story. Don Keogh was an old pal of mine. He had reached out to me maybe 3 years ago now, I guess, to possibly narrate the film you're about to see. I knew it was going to be quite special if the Keogh Naughton Chair for Irish Studies here at the university was involved and was indeed the initiator. Of course, I leapt on board. Anything from my old drinking buddy, Don. If I can crave your indulgence, I would love to read for you a poem by William Butler Yeats, entitled, appropriately enough, Easter 1916. If I may also ask you all to please hold any applause until after the film. That's just for me. Many thanks. Easter 1916. I have met them at the close of day, coming with vivid faces from counter or desk among grey 18th century houses. I have passed with a nod of the head or polite, meaningless words, or have lingered a while and said, polite, meaningless words, and thought before I had done of a mocking tale or a jibe to please a companion around the fire at the club, being certain that they and I but lived where motley is worn. All changed utterly. A terrible beauty is born. That woman's days were spent in ignorant goodwill, her nights in argument until her voice grew shrill. What voice more sweet than hers when young and beautiful she rode to harriers? This man had kept a school and rode our winged horse. This other, his helper and friend, was coming into his force. He might have won fame in the end. So sensitive his nature seemed, so daring and sweet his thought. This other man I had dreamed a drunken, vainglorious lout. He had done most bitter wrong to some who were near my heart, yet I number him in the song. He too has resigned his part in the casual comedy. He too has been changed in his turn, transformed utterly. A terrible beauty is born. Hearts with one purpose alone through summer and winter seem enchanted to a stone to trouble the living stream. The horse that comes from the road, the rider, the birds that range from cloud to tumbling cloud, minute by minute they change. A shadow of cloud on the stream changes minute by minute. A horse hoof slides on the brim and a horse plashes within it. The long-legged moorhens dive and hens to moorcocks call. Minute to minute they live. The stones in the midst of all. Too long a sacrifice can make a stone of the heart. Oh, when may it suffice? That is heaven's part. Our part to murmur name upon name as a mother names her child when sleep at last has come on limbs that had run wild. What is it but nightfall? No, not night, but death. Was it needless, death, after all? For England may keep faith for all that is done and said. We know their dream, enough to know they dreamed and are dead. And what if excess of love bewildered them till they died? I write it out in a verse. MacDonough and McBride and Connolly and Pierce. Now, and in time to be, wherever green is worn, are changed utterly. A terrible